This is the Asics Novablast 2, a follow-up to the breakout hit that Asics brought to us last year and that many of us fell in love with. And for 2021, Asics has made slight tweaks to the upper, to the midsole, and to the outsole. But are these little changes enough to build upon the success of last year, or will these changes ruin a good thing? It's time to lace up the Novablast 2 and put them to the test. 11.14 miles, 8 minutes, 30 seconds per mile, 144 beats per minute today. Going for an easy run with some strides thrown in there so that I could test the Asics Novablast 2. Now, before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me early for the purpose of review by Asics. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Asics Novablast 2. First, let's go over some of the specs. In the heel, we've got 30 millimeters of stack height with that FF Blast midsole foam. And this year they've changed the drop. It's an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 22 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. So we have 2 more millimeters of that fantastic FF Blast midsole foam. On the outsole, we've got AHAR Plus, which we saw last year. But this year, it seems like they changed the outsole pattern just a little bit. It seems like there's just a little bit more rubber to the outsole there, which I think is gonna aid with some of that durability. That AHAR Plus, which stands for Asics High Abrasion Rubber Plus, held up really well, much better than I thought it would last year for the Novablast 1. So we're seeing it again here, but it just seems like it's more kind of full in terms of the strips where they do have the outsole rubber, especially in the areas where there's high wear. For me is usually right around here. It seems like there's just a little bit more rubber in the outsole, again, to aid with some of that durability. And I think it's also gonna help a little bit kind of with the underfoot feel in terms of the stability of this shoe. On the upper, we've got a double jacquard mesh, which makes it feel like almost like a knit material. It's very soft, very flexible in the toes. And then that wraps around into this midfoot cage, which is a little bit more solid of a material, not quite as breathable. Around the back towards the heel, we've got a little bit of a TPU overlay on each side, a little bit of a change pattern from what they had last year, but the heel cup is still very substantial. There's a lot of just kind of structure back here. It's not very flexible at all. And there does seem to be a little bit more padding as well as a little bit more of like a softening of some of the edges. This colorway that I have is part of the Celebration of Sport collection. So it's a special colorway that I think is not going to be available right at launch. I don't have an overall weight from this one yet, but last year's Novablast came in at 9.2 ounces. And I feel like this one's going to be pretty close, should be in that same area. It might be a little bit heavier. There is a little bit more foam in this one, but I think it's gonna be pretty close, right in that neighborhood. So what was it like to run in the Novablast 2? The Novablast 2 with its FF Blast midsole foam is a very soft shoe. I really enjoy running in the soft comfort of the shoe. Today I took it out for kind of a medium run, 11 miles with some stairs and some hills thrown in there. It's a very soft shoe to run in, and I think it just loves running long distances. Today I was out there for 11 miles, and I felt like if I had more time and a couple more gels, I felt like I could have really gone all day. The feeling of that foam is just very soft and comfortable underfoot. Just such a great job of absorbing the impact of all those road miles. But that foam, when it squishes down, it still gives a lot back to you. So you're not just losing all that energy when you're hitting the ground. You're still getting it back, but it's a very kind of slow return, which works, I think, for the way that I like using this shoe, which is to use it as my everyday trainer and as my long run shoe. I think you can also use this as a recovery run shoe as well. But I think as a testament to its versatility, I feel like this shoe could also be used for workouts as well. So for today, I did have some strides as part of the easy run, and I felt like it did a fantastic job picking up the pace. And I felt like when you were moving faster, I felt like then the recoil of the foam felt really good to get moving at faster speeds as well. I'm not sure that I would bring it to the track because it does feel every bit of that 30 millimeters of stack height that's in there. It feels like a pretty tall shoe, but I do feel like it's something that you could definitely take on a fartlek run or a longer run with some moderate effort miles in there. Something that's definitely going to be able to handle those kinds of paces. I will say though that I do feel like the changes that they made to the Novablast do make it feel like a little bit firmer of a shoe than last year. Last year, it just felt like it was an insanely squishy shoe that somehow you could still run quickly in. This year, it's a shoe that's soft that you can also run quickly in. It's kind of lost like the insanity part of it. Part of that is coming from the fact that they've added 2 more millimeters of stack height to the forefoot. I think that kind of like mellows it out a little bit. I also think they've reconfigured the foam a little bit in the shoe to reshape the heel area so that way it's not kind of wobbling so much. Some people, when they tried the shoe, they just couldn't get over kind of like the squishiness and it felt a little bit unstable. This year, I feel like the changes that they made, not only to the stack height, but also to the shape of the heel, adds to making it feel a lot more stable. To me, that translates to feeling like a little bit more firm of a foam, almost to the point where I'm wondering, did they tinker with the formulation of the FF Blast a little bit or not? Or is it just simply the geometries that are giving me that slight different sensation? The third thing that I also think might be kind of contributing to the sensation that it feels a little bit firmer is that I do think that there's a little bit more rubber in this outsole than there was last year. This year, I feel like they brought a little bit of it back. I'm not sure if that's going to be a great thing, but for those of you who thought that maybe last year's Novablast was just way too squishy, this year I feel like they've firmed it up just a little bit. You still get a lot of that softness, but I feel like they've also like kind of mellowed out a lot of that extra insanity squishiness that was in last year's version. So it's a little bit tightened up. The other changes that they made to the shoe for this year are they changed the upper. Everything's kind of just like slightly toned down. We still have that kind of weird pattern up here in terms of like the holes that are in this mesh that make it, reminds me of a strawberry when I look at it, kind of in an off-putting kind of way, but it is very comfortable and it is quite breathable. And there is kind of this like toe protector kind of area that is causing a little bit of puckering when I look at both of my shoes right up here in the toes. So there's something with the fit that's just not quite right. That's not exactly right for my foot. And it reminds me a lot of kind of like some of the, I think, sizing issues that last year's version had. Now, I went with the same size 9 that I go with in almost all of my shoes, the same size that I went with Novablast 1. And I feel like this year it fits a little bit more snug or a little bit more kind of correctly than last year's did. It's not a major detractor. For a lot of you who are Asics faithful, it's gonna feel like a lot of the Asics toe boxes that you're used to. But for me, it's just not my like ultimate favorite type of preference. I do like how they've tone things down a lot more on its tongue as well. Still have a gusseted tongue here and still has a very minimal amount of padding. So I like what they've done with the tongue in terms of not going crazy with it. And then around the back, it's still very much an Asics shoe in the back where there's just a lot of stuff going on here to keep the ankle in place. Felt very locked into this shoe, even going at faster paces. The whole shoe still felt like it fit very well. Other than the minor gripes about the upper not being perfect, it's still a very good upper. But other than those minor gripes that I have about it, I did have a couple of things that I didn't love in terms of my very brief testing today on this first run. One was that I felt like at my top speeds, at my fastest speeds in my strides today, I felt like the shoe did tend to bottom out. So that squishiness, after a while, it just couldn't keep giving me more cushion as I got to kind of like my faster speed. So as I was getting to closer to mile pace, that's when I felt like the shoe kind of left a little bit to be desired because of the fact that I don't think it's really meant to be run at mile pace or faster. But anything that was kind of in between easy and probably up to like 5K pace, maybe even a little bit faster than that, I felt like the shoe was able to handle all those paces really well. And it's just a testament to its versatility that I enjoyed it at all those speeds. And the upper as much as it seems like it's a little bit big, I felt like it was on there quite snug and secure. The other thing that I noticed, it wasn't a problem, but something that definitely I was able to notice on this run was that it seems like there's a high ankle. I've already talked about how kind of there's a lot of stuff back here in terms of this heel cup, but I feel like some shoes right here in this part of the ankle on the lateral side, sometimes it's cut really low. This shoe is cut really high. So I felt like there was a lot of touching of like the ankle bone as it stuck out on the side. I really only noticed it whenever I was taking a turn, but when I did, I tended to feel like, oh, there's something kind of like rubbing there. It didn't cause any issues in terms of chafing, and ultimately combined with all the structure that's in this heel cup, it may make for a more secure shoe if you do have a lot of turns that you have to take during your run. But for me, what that translated to was this could potentially be an area of chafing, although for over the 11 miles that I ran today, it wasn't a problem, but just something that some of you might want to look out for. Overall, while it doesn't have the novelty that it had last year in terms of having the insane squishiness, I still think it's a very soft shoe that somehow you can run a wide variety of paces and distances in. So I do think that while they have made a lot of little changes, I do think that they ultimately made a better shoe for this year for the Novablast 2. Do I think that that means that anyone that's running in the Novablast 1 has to throw that shoe away and immediately pick this one up? I don't think so. I don't think that it's necessarily something that you have to run out and get immediately. It's not that big of a change. Or if you want to try and save a couple of bucks and find maybe a discounted pair of Novablast 1 and then get into the Novablast 2 later on this summer, I think that might be another way of saving a couple of bucks as well. But if you're looking at Novablast 1 or Novablast 2, I think the Novablast 2 is the better option. So those are my thoughts so far on the Novablast 2 after just the first run. Hit the subscribe button so you could see more runs and so you can see when I compare this shoe to the other shoes that are out there on the market to see which one is going to be better. If you have any questions about the shoe, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do just about every day on YouTube. I'd love to interact with you guys in the chat there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?